Was born Dave Ritchie at Burt Ridge near Kempsey in 1926, one of 6 boxing boys. Like Ron Richards, he was a devastating counterpuncher. Sands was a serious contender for the world middleweight title then held by Sugar Ray Robinson. As it was, Dave twice beat another American, Carl Bobo Olsen, who held the world crown while Robinson took a holiday. And he blitzed Dick Turpin in England for the Empire middleweight title. Back home in Sydney, Sands, who went on to record 15 first-round KOs, was matched with Henry Brim, a classy American who had fought a 10-round draw with Sugar Ray Robinson. Poor old Henry didn't know what hit him. But in this fight in 1951 with another American, Irvin Steen, Sands bombed him early but got careless and struggled for the rest of a dreary fight. When he was fired up though, there was no stopping Sands, as Big Al Burke found out in this Empire title fight. Sands and his brothers were all trained by this man, Tom Maguire, who was often accused of exploiting them. Dave's brothers also made their mark as fighters. Alfie Sands was a big hit, and Russell, in the dark trunks here fighting Tommy Romulo, won the Australian Featherweight Championship. The referee, Vic Patrick. Despite a withered leg, Russell in the lighter trunks was all go as he showed against Sapo Ortega. But of all the brothers, Dave was to be the one who would receive the international recognition. In 1951, he was on the verge of fighting Robinson when the Englishman Randolph Turpin jumped the queue, beat Sugar Ray and made $500,000 from a rematch. Sands made 70 quid from his last fight. In all, he had 110 pro fights over 11 years, but was penniless when he died. For Sands, the fighter who seemed to have it all, luck was the one vital ingredient that always eluded him. Renowned trainer Jack Rennie.
And I think he was one of the greatest we've ever had. Don't let anyone tell you that Dave Sands wasn't a great boxer. He doesn't get the honour, I think, due to him because he was such a great fighter.
Like another great middleweight, Les Darcy, Sands never got to show his very best. Australia's other great Empire champ of the 50s was a stocky welterweight, Georgie Barnes. George's father boxed under the name of Frank Burns and fought all around the world in the 1920s. He won the Australian middleweight title by beating the great Tommy Uren and quit after being beaten by the greater Jack Haynes. George served in New Guinea during World War II, contracted malaria, and reckons that cost him 2 early losses to Frankie Flannery. In 1951, George was badly burnt by an exploding homemade lamp during a blackout, and doctors told him he'd never fight again. They were wrong. Then, under the training of Ern McQuillan, Barnes came back to twice beat the future world champ, American Wallace Bud Smith.
He was 8-1 on favourite to beat me. Ern said, well, I'd like to see anybody beat George Barnes with a straight left, you know. So the night of the fight, I punched the soul cage out of him. I hit him with everything, you know.
Rugged fights like this one against the fair-headed Irishman McLay made George a crowd favourite. And when he beat Pran Micus for the Australian welterweight title, he and his dad became the first father and son Australian champs. It was against Freddie Dawson at the Sydney Sports Ground in 1954 that George proved his world class, despite losing a points decision.
Barnes goes in attacking, sees an opening and shoots a brilliantly timed right to the jaw. Dawson's down. The American's really groggy as he stays on the canvas for the compulsory 8 count. It's a sensational opening to one of Sydney's biggest outdoor fights. Dawson's had 2 clears, but he has to battle to keep on.
There was huge wagering on the bout, particularly by one big bookmaker.
He said, I've got money here to say Barnes will not go the distance with Dawson, and Jim Barker, my father-in-law, and my manager then, said, I've got money to say that he will. He will go the distance with Dawson. So he said 5,000 quid down on the thing, on the target, and said, there, 5,000 quid he won. Jim said, I'll take that.
Now the American senses that Barnes is weakening. He surges in for the kill. A terrific left hook to the solar plexus sends Barnes to the canvas. Barnes is in real trouble here, and only his tremendous courage and physical fitness allow him to beat the count. For the last 3 rounds, it's the the same story, but Dawson just can't get set for a knockout punch. Barnes is catching it right, left, and sideways. Barnes is a chopping block for the Negro champion, but he's determined to stay the distance. And he does.
So one of the judges gave me the fight by 1 point. Oh, he was a good friend of mine. That was Ron Walden, the head of the police, you know. Yeah, and after the fight was all over, they all stood up and clapped, you know, because I went the distance with Freddie Dawson.
1956 was a great year for Australian sport, with a whole new generation of heroes emerging from Melbourne's Olympic Games. That same year, George fought this classic bout with the Italian champ Bruno Visintin to open West Melbourne Stadium. The parochial Italian crowd was overjoyed when their hero was awarded the bout.
Barnes starts well, but Barnes is pretty aggressive, and the stage is set for a really close fight.
George delighted fans in Brisbane and Sydney with his battles against the smart boxing McQuillan fighter Billy Todd. Their fight here in Brisbane was a classic 15-rounder.
Todd makes a game effort too, but with one eye closed, he's no match for the champion. Barnes piles on the points, enough to give him a win in one of the closest decisions ever in a title fight. George Barnes, still British Empire welterweight champion.
When they met in Sydney, George ended it in round 6. George Barnes was an inspiration to a generation of young battlers, as one of the great modern-day trainers, Johnny Lewis, recalls.
I love the stadium days, and I think that my first real hero was George Barnes. I remember when I used to listen to the Wireless of a Monday night, and I remember the epic battles he had with Darby Brown, who was a local guy from Alexandria.
This clash with Darby Brown, an awkward tough guy from the inner city, came in 1956, when George held both the Australian and Empire titles. When Vic Patrick crowned Brown the points winner after 12 rounds, it was a monumental upset, but George settled the score 3 months later. Garner's world-class Atu Clotty had a big set of choppers and a big heart. Both his fights with Barnes ended controversially.
Atu Clotty, the dusky visitor, had never been knocked down in 60 fights. Barnes attacked from the
But George and his new trainer Arthur Fennell went home winners.
Late in the bout, Clotty changed from defence to attack to make up some of the leeway. But the durable Barnes was able to stay the distance, gain a close points verdict, and retain the championship belt.
Like his dad, George fought all over the world. Johnny Van Rensburg beat him in Rhodesia in 1958, and 3 months later, Sydney Stadium was packed on this night to see George reclaim his Empire title in spectacular fashion.
And Jim Barker, my trainer, said, "You're behind on points, you've got to knock him out." So I had, and I served this haymaker ready, on the chin, and down he went, and he got up. I knocked him out 3 times, I think, you know. And then he got up, and he was going, and he just collapsed in the arms, you know.
The African gets up again, but not for long. Barnes seems reluctant to inflict any more punishment, but the referee says fight on. Rensburg collapses, and Barnes becomes the only Australian to ever win an Empire title twice. The gallant Van Rensburg is assisted to his corner by Barnes, who has proved he's still among the world's top welterweights.
George was outgunned by the American Ralph Dupar, who was bigger, faster and younger than George. And he had more moves than Fred Astaire. By now, George was aged 35, and when he came up against Ern McQuillan's rangy Queenslander Clive Stewart here, he was too old and too small for his middleweight opponent. Clive Stewart was a tough kid from Brisbane who fought the best